mic. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the council meeting of June 26, 2023. The meeting is being live streamed on the Town of Kentville YouTube channel. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting package? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? I will remind members of council that we are in decision-making mode and we should be mindful of our decision-making wheel. We have committed to making balanced and respectful decisions and adhering to our code of conduct. This council, through policy and by motion, has adopted Robert's Rules as our rules of order, our parliamentary procedure. We will be voting by electronic means on all votes except administrative. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before this meeting commences? Councillor York is attending via Zoom and giant head over in the corner, and we do have quorum for the meeting. We have been provided with a proposed agenda. Are there any further additions or changes to the agenda, CAO?
There's two items, Mayor Snow. So as per our meeting policy, where we have a member who will be remotely joining, so we would add 2B, which would be remote participation. So council would need to acknowledge you have a councillor who's coming in remotely.
Thank you.
And then there was an RFD which was going to be in camera, which was 4C. That can come forward out of in camera, which is RFD sanction.
Thank you.
That'd be 4C.
All right, thank you. Councillor Zabian?
Yeah, so just for clarity, thank you, Mayor Snow. The item that CEO Troke is referring to is the sanction that you guys imposed upon me, the discussion. All I'm looking for that is just an explanation from the solicitor on how it's legal, because municipal affairs is
Certainly,
yeah,
Councillor.
that there's no authority
It's been
in it,
moved.
so- Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
If I could have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Zabian, thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. We have several sets of minutes, and I will just remind council that the April 24th minutes were circulated with our last meeting package, so they would have come out on the June 12th meeting package. However, you have had them for your review, and they were a special council meeting, so if there are no changes, that was the one with the operational budget. If there are no changes, the minutes are approved as distributed. And if there are, the recording secretary will annotate those. The minutes originally came out as an advisory committee. However, that was a special meeting, so that has been annotated in the minutes. The next set of minutes was the May 30th council meeting. Are there any changes to that set of minutes? If not, they will be accepted into the record. Our next set of minutes was June the 19th, 2023. It was a special council meeting. Any changes on that one? No changes? All right, minutes are approved as distributed. Thank you very much. And the next set of minutes was the public hearing meeting, which was held on June 21st. If there are no changes to that set of minutes. All right. So our first order of business is the rezoning application. Council has heard first reading. We have, oh, I meant to do that. Sorry about that, Council. I jumped the gun. So we should have done remote attendance, and the motion is that council approve the attendance of Councillor York via Zoom due to travel cancellations in accordance with the MGA Para 19-2 and Town of Kentville Policy G70 Para 413. If someone could move that, please. Councillor Gerard, thank you. And Councillor Huntley, thank you for the second on that. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the attendance of Councillor York via Zoom due to travel cancellations in accordance with the MGA and Town of Kentville policy. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the attendance of Councillor York via Zoom due to travel cancellations in accordance with the MGA and the Town of Kentville Policy G70, para 4-13. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thanks, CAO. I'll catch up. All right, we have a rezoning application, and as I stated previously, council has done first reading. We have held a public hearing, and so therefore this evening we are here to have second reading of the rezoning application. So the motion is that council approves second reading of the rezoning application. If someone could move that, please. Councillor Maxwell, thank you. And a seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve second reading of the rezoning application. I'll open the floor to discussion, and I will remind council that we had a public hearing on the rezoning application. There were over 30 members of our citizens who spoke at the meeting. They presented 5 key areas of concern during that time period. One was sidewalks, traffic, green spaces, planning, and overland water. And Deputy Mayor, I see you've got your light on.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Worship. So with respect to some of your comments around the 5 key areas, I actually have some concerns around traffic calming, stormwater management, the recreation piece around more description around multi-use pathways, the changes, the recent changes that we just made to the subdivision bylaw amendments around sidewalks, holding ponds. Those are just to name a few. I would like to have more information, and I believe that after a public hearing, we are able to ask for more information. So my recommendation this evening would be to lay this motion on the table. Maybe I can't make that right now, but I'll include that in my comments. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, you can, as a motion to lay on the table, takes precedence over all other business. So are you making a motion to lay the second reading of the rezoning application on the table?
Yes, I am.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Huntley? It has been moved and seconded that council postpone the second reading of the rezoning application until staff can provide clarification on matters brought before the public hearing. We would also have to, CAO, have a special meeting to get that information at the soonest possible.
Correct.
And-
You'd probably want to have another meeting, well, a week from today would be a holiday, so probably that Tuesday, if council was looking to have the information with relatively quick turnaround.
Okay. Solicitor, I see you there. However, Councillor Maxwell had her light on before you, so do you have a matter that, I'm going to say trumps the councillor? Okay, I'll let you tell.
If I might, with Councillor Maxwell's permission.
Okay.
The motion as stated doesn't give staff any direction.
Right.
And if council is looking for information, it's important that it's clear what information is being sought at this point.
Okay.
And so that staff knows what's being asked, and
Okay.
a determination will have to be made whether this is new information, whether it's clarification. But for now, I would encourage council to identify what that information is, and I would encourage you to, if possible, include it in the resolution.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go with Councillor Maxwell first.
Thank you. For me, it would be clarification. I was also wondering if we have a date for the public that we will bring this back forward.
So as suggested by the CAO, perhaps Tuesday, the 4th of July, that we would get information from staff.
Yep.
And at that time, if we are, if we have resolved our clarifications, then we should be able to proceed. Does that answer your question, Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
And you said you wanted clarification on something?
Clarification, we're looking at, would be the things that Deputy Mayor read off. For me, it would just be clarification.
Okay,
And so the 4th of July, is that a special meeting of council?
it certainly would be.
And is that in-camera meeting?
No, it will not be. It will be a public meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think what I would like to see staff bring back is a vision or a goal or, something overall where there's a lot of land up there and the Donald Hills Connector Road is going to be developed. It'd be nice, instead of doing everything piecemeal and saying, here's a chunk of land, this is what we propose for this, to go, what does council, what does the developer, what do the folks of the subdivision, what's an overall vision 20 years down the road? We're looking right now to make a decision on a relatively small piece of land, of the overall amount of land that's up there. That's what I'd like to see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor, this will be your second time speaking to this matter, so just so you know. Oh, okay. When did she do that? Okay. I see you, Councillor York. I have Deputy Mayor on deck, Councillor Zabian, and then and before Councillor Maxwell, because she's already spoken once, actually.
Yeah, please, yep.
Okay, so I have to go around the Deputy Mayor because Councillor Zabian has not spoken, and then it will be you. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. I agree with what Councillor Gerard said. I'm just wondering, is staff going to be able to do that in 7 days, come back with a full plan of, are we on now?
You're on now.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
yes. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Councillor Gerard had a good point there, but I'm just wondering, in a week, staff is going to be able to come back with plans of all that land up there, and I think that's a little bit high expectation, I think.
I agree.
You
I
have to
agree
ask
with what you're
CAO. I
saying.
think that's quite an expectation to put on somebody in a week.
So I think, certainly the secondary plan is kind of the vision for everything. And again, recognizing this is clarification, so anything that is coming back to council with regards to this rezoning has to be documents that are already created. So what we would do would we be simply looking at any of the information that was presented during this rezoning, or if we have information, for example, with regards to active transportation plans and whatnot that talk about how we're going to go about achieving green space, pathways, and those kinds of things. They're public documents, they're already out there. That kind of information could come back. Probably wouldn't have a picture of the 700 acres or whatever that's up there, but we would just supply council with the information as to how decisions would be made based on already approved documentation.
So, just one
No,
more
go
quick
ahead.
question. I guess for those of you that have questions, it probably, just my advice would to be pretty detailed right now, and they only have a week, right? So be as detailed as you can so that they know what you're looking for and give it back to you, right? Rather than just kind of be broad. Thank you.
Solicitor?
Just trying to assist with the discussion, Your Worship. The questions for staff need to be pretty pointed. These can't be motherhood questions. If, as a council, you don't feel that that you can deal with the application until you deal with motherhood issues, that's a different thing. You're not going to get staff to be able to deal with motherhood issues. You have to deal with the application that's before you. And what's in the municipal planning strategy today, and your decision needs to be consistent with the municipal planning strategy. Future development of land, for example, on the south side of the Donald D. Hills Connector Road, may or may not be relevant to your overall decision, but it's certainly not addressed in the municipal planning strategy, and you need to deal with that, what's in the municipal planning strategy. So if as a reason, if you heard information at the public hearing that you need clarification of staff about, please specify what those things are so that staff can respond precisely to those issues. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Solicitor. Councillor York.
Thank you. I think it's been likely pretty much covered, but I do want to recognize that, that the delay in getting this information and having this vote is still in recognition of all the work that the town staff have done and also the amount of effort and work that's come from the community on the issue. But I want to make sure that I, at least in speaking for myself, am voting for something that I feel like has answered all of my questions. So I do appreciate that it might feel like a bit of a delay, and it is, obviously, but I think it's more important to get it done right than to get it done quickly. And so I would much rather have the answers to some of my questions, which specifically relate to the current recreation infrastructure in the town and the impact of adding more community to that, as well as the water situation, like the water runoff, the water collection, all of that up in the neighborhood as it exists presently, and what the expected impact would be as we create more of those houses and properties.
Thank you, Councillor. So I have recreation infrastructure and addition, and then I'm terming it overland water for collection and the actual water that's out there. So Deputy Mayor, I'll go back to you because you were ahead of Councillor Maxwell and you've both spoken once on the matter.
Thank you, Worship. So I think some of the folks have talked about it already, but for me, it would be traffic calming measures and more disposition around that. Secondly, it would be more disposition just in general around holding ponds and how they would work in that area. It would be clarity around the existing stormwater management that is in place now. It would be more clarity and maybe more of an unveiling of the recreation piece and multi-use pathways and how that it was incorporated into the revision that we just did on the subdivision bylaw and amendments to sidewalks. And to CAO Troke's point around the AT plan achieving green space and multi-use pathways. So, to Councillor Zabian's note, I don't know that July 4th is ample time to get that sort of information to us. I have great trepidation that it is. I think that's a very short timeline. To Councillor York's point, I would rather get this right than get it done quick. So if it takes a few weeks, it takes a few weeks. If it doesn't come back till the end of July or the end of September, because I know we're off in August, then it doesn't. I don't know if there's a restriction around that timeline, but I don't think we should rush it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I wasn't looking at this being a big task for council or for staff, because I think all of these concerns they have already addressed, and it's just clarification for us, maybe to hear it again from them. To Councillor Gerard's point about the secondary plan, I think it's very important that we don't place too much emphasis on that, because although we can go through and say what we'd like to see, in the end, it could change tomorrow. And because we owned none of that land. And so, you know, it would be up to the homeowner to sell it or develop it, and then they would come and ask us for whatever zoning they required for their vision. So I think it's very important that we realize that we have no control specifically over the land, other than we can say what we would like to see. Maybe we'd like to see C1 along the right side of the Donald Hills connector, or, you know, something like that. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. I have a question that I don't think has been asked or answered yet, and I'm just wondering, what kind of timeline are we looking at for this Donald Hills connector? Because that's a big part of this project. You know, if if it does pass through and you have people working up there, I'm sure the developer wants to start right away. If it did pass, I mean, that road could be years off, right? So do we know anything about that, or it's just kind of up in the air?
CAO, did you want to take that?
Sure. So as part of our ICIP application to the province and the federal government, it's a 3-year funding stream from them starting in this year. So you would be looking at 2 full construction seasons and, maybe potentially a little bit past that. The other piece I would mention is, and I think in the public presentation, part of the presentation from the developer's representative was that it would take a full year after you would go through a rezoning for your site plans and whatnot to be presented to the town. And so from a development perspective, while there could be work can be done, once a rezoning goes through, from a construction perspective, it's not going to start this construction season. So you would likely have construction of, we'll call it the base road infrastructure, and the construction going on from the developer, both kind of starting in around the same time. So I think one of the questions being access to the site from the Donald Hills connector would be one of those key elements, and mainly just getting larger machinery into the site. So it looks like, if you looked at that, both of these things would likely occur in similar timeframes. I can't speak to how rapid, the developer would be, say, in a year, but my expectation was that process of site plan would probably take, site plan, environmental approval, those pieces would probably take, I think based on their comments, in that kind of 8 to 12 month time range.
And thank you, and the Donald Hills, you're thinking 2 or 3 years after it started?
For completion,
Right,
full
okay.
completion.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. For me, we had our public attend the meeting. It was only Wednesday night, and it wasn't really that long. I think we owe it to them to, sorry, speak for myself. I owe it to them to make sure that all the bases are covered, and I'm comfortable with it. And I'm looking for some of their top 5 concerns to just be clarified for me, to make sure I completely understand them, and that way I walk away feeling comfortable with whatever decision I make. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, CAO, we have a motion. The solicitor has asked us to be as specific as possible. So the first part of the motion is that staff can provide clarification on matters brought before. And what I have taken notes on is our current recreation infrastructure and how it meets the upscaling. Overland water plan, holding ponds, stormwater management, traffic calming measures, and the recreation piece includes our AT, it includes the bylaw that we've just made on the sidewalk, and it includes the green space. And one of the questions we had was whether this was just going to be a little kiddie playground, or was this going to be, a big playground. So kind of a conceptual plan of where we're going with recreation, AT, and the sidewalks as a complete group. The next question the next item that was on this motion is to hold a special meeting of council on July 4th. Is that too soon? With this a long weekend coming up. I know, I threw that at you. Sorry.
So, I mean, this is about taking information we have and presenting it. Part of the challenge would be, not that we can't get the information to you, is does getting that information then give you time to absorb it and go into a meeting? So if that were the case and council wished, we can certainly commit to having the information to council within a week. And then if council wanted a week to absorb that, which would then put a special meeting on the same night as our CAC.
Okay, so you're saying that you could get info to us by July 4th?
Correct.
And then we could hold a special council meeting in advance of our CAC meeting on July 10th. And that's doable by staff?
Yes.
okay? And then further, that council would take up the matter of second reading subsequent to staff presentation. So council, July 4th for the information. And another special meeting, and both of these meetings will be open to the public. They are not in-camera meetings. And it's another special meeting on July 10th.
So if I could, you wouldn't have a meeting on the 4th. The
Okay.
information will go to
Oh, right,
council.
okay.
And council would hold the meeting on the 10th.
Okay, so July 4th, we get the info.
Mhm.
July 10th would be our special meeting. July 10th, I guess if we did an hour before CAC? Does an hour sound doable?
And is that to make the decision?
That is,
Second
so
reading.
we will have the information on July 4th. So July 10th, that gives you 6 days to mull in what you've received, questions back to the CAO, and then we would have a meeting, discussion. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
With all due respect, what's the rush? Thank you.
I don't know that there is one. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I don't look at this as a rush. I look at it as not putting off too soon what we can already do. It's coming to us, whether it comes to us on the 10th or whether it comes to us on the 25th, doesn't matter, I don't think. I think the thing is, we have to make a decision, and we will have all the information. So that's how I feel about that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll pencil these in for now as part of this motion. So both Deputy Mayor and Councillor Huntley, we've amplified the original motion, that it now reads that it has been moved and seconded that council postpone the second reading of the rezoning application until staff can provide clarification on the following matters: recreation infrastructure and how it goes to adding more people, overland water plan, holding ponds and stormwater management, traffic calming measures, the recreation piece to include the green space, the sidewalks, based on the new bylaw, and the AT plan. And further, that council meet with staff at a special meeting of council on July 10th. Wait, I think I have to put something in there first. Further, that council receive information from staff on July 4th, and that council meet with staff at a special meeting of council on July 10th. And further, that council take up the matter of second reading subsequent to the staff, the special meeting. Do either of you have any adjustments to what has just been read? Have I missed anything? I see the solicitor standing up.
I'd like, if the mover and seconder don't mind, to include the time of that meeting. I think you intended to be at 5 p.m.
Oh, yes, okay, sorry about that. July 10th, it is written in my notes. July 10th at 10 p.m. At 5 p.m. Are you ready for the question? The question is laying on the table the second reading of the rezoning application until staff can provide clarification on the following matters: recreation infrastructure and what happens to adding all these people and places, overland water plan, including holding ponds and stormwater management, traffic calming measures, and the recreation piece, which includes the green space, the AT plan, and the sidewalks based on the new bylaw. And that the information would be provided from staff on July 4th, and a special meeting of council would be held on July 10th at 5 p.m. You got that? Flying fingers of fury. Okay. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right, this moves us on to our next order of business, which is a grant request from the Kentville Lions Club. And CAO, did you want to speak to that?
Sure, thank you, Mayor Snow, I appreciate it. So council, we received a request, so I'll remind council, there was a discussion held previously by council with regards to supporting the Lions Club with purchasing of paint. There was, the expectation was that staff would reach out so that the Lions Club could make a request, and which they did. In their grant application, though, the new application was to have the building painted. And so the request, I'm gonna round it to $8,000, I think it was $7,900 and change. The two pieces I just wanted to make council aware of. So one, the Lions Club is in a lease with the town, and this was just renewed in May of 2023. And in that lease, the lease says the tenant is responsible for all maintenance and repairs. So specifically, there's a covenant in the agreement that says that they will keep the premises well painted. So that's an actual covenant in the agreement. The request for $8,000 exceeds the limit of our grant. So if one were applying for a grant through our grant application process, the maximum funds that an individual could be awarded is $2,000. So that's as per our policy G28 with regards to grants. So before council entertained that, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that the lease, which has just been renewed, is very specific, that all maintenance and repairs are the responsibility of the tenant, and that their request that they have made exceeds the limit of our grant application policy itself.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Huntley.
What I'm wondering is, I don't know if we need a new motion on this, but is there a way that we could just pay for the paint for the building? Cut a PO and the bill come to us for the paint? Again, I need clarity on that. Thank you.
CAO?
Certainly, and that was some of the discussion that was had here previously, that if there was a limit that was set on the quantity that was needed, either through a PO process or through an expense process, where we could do an estimate of what we thought that would be, and then that amount would be set aside, and certainly be under the $2,000 limit for our grants process.
So CAO, if Councillor Huntley was making a motion, it would be through Public Works Director using purchase order?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Did you wish to move your motion?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so that council approved the request from the Kentville Lions Club to purchase paint through Public Works Director using a purchase order. That's Councillor Huntley. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Maxwell, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the request from the Kentville Lions Club to purchase paint through Public Works Director using purchase order. Is there any discussion on this matter? Councillor Huntley, did you wish to speak to that?
No, I think it's clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. This came to council unsolicited. Staff was to reach out, find out what they needed for paint, and then this came through. I think it's time, under this council, that the town considered not being a landlord, getting rid of anything that's not infrastructure. You know, like I've said many times before, if we're willing to do this for this group, when the next group comes along and says, we want, you know, stuff done, you have, unfortunately, you have to treat dealing with one group, one club, one entity. And, you know, once you open that door, the floodgates could open and everybody could be coming and looking for money. Anyways, I won't be supporting it. That's my view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I think this is what we were looking at on May the 30th, I think it was, that we were going to help them out a bit by supplying some paint. I don't have a problem with that. As far as, you know, getting rid of all our assets, our buildings and so on, I think that's a tricky, you know, a path I wouldn't suggest we go down when we start dumping our assets. It is an asset, and I think the Lions Club could probably find some people to scrape and paint from our community. Our community is very helpful, and that's what I think. So, yeah, I'll support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. And so to CEO Troke's point in terms of contravening the lease, in terms of the lease being such that it says, you know, that all the upkeep is for their account, et cetera. That said, I look at this one a little bit differently, and I understand and hear what Councillor Gerard is saying about setting a precedent. I understand that, but I feel that this is a good use of taxpayer dollars, so I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zabian and then Councillor York.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Snow. I brought this forward a month ago, and I understood it was just for paint, so I don't know if there was a communication matter, but looking at it now, you know what, the Lions do a lot for our community, and I mean, we've spent a lot of money on different things where there was no value, in my opinion, so I'm gonna support this the way it is. I think, you know, they do a lot for the community, and we're lucky that we have them here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor York.
Thank you. Is there anything in the lease that precludes them from applying to the grant application? I understand they have to upkeep the building, but we didn't specify where they get their money to do that upkeep?
That's correct. However, our policy is very clear that operations is not part of the granting. So typically, it's for special projects and other things that groups are doing.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the request from Kentville Lions Club to purchase paint through the Public Works Director using a purchase order.
Sorry, Mayor Snow, we're altering that motion altogether then, the original one?
What original motion?
Well, the recommendation is that council approve the request of the grant for $8,000. That's what the recommendation says in the package. Are we voting on that first and then?
No. The motion was made by Councillor Huntley.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it too late for me
Yep.
to make an
Yeah.
amendment?
Well, no, because we're voting on the question now. So voting is open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, the next matter that we have is an RFD with regards to a sanction limiting access to the CAO by a member of council. And Solicitor Matart, if you would take the podium on this matter, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is an RFD brought forward by Councillor Zabian, asking Council to seek legal advice about whether the sanction imposed upon him is something that council could do. Obviously, that affects him personally. It may or may not be something that council as a whole wants a formal opinion on. It should be obvious that the only legal advice that Councillor Zabian can rely on is advice he receives from his own lawyer. And it's important to emphasize, because the advice that the solicitor for the town provides to council is for council's benefit, not for the benefit of individuals. Council doesn't need to justify its actions to Councillor Zabian. However, it may be instructive for council to understand that the Municipal Government Act does provide for council obtaining information from town staff. That's council. We've talked about this before. That's not individual councillors. As individuals, councillors are not entitled to any information that's not public. It's only as a body that you, as a group, can request information. Individually, you can ask, you may not receive necessarily. And that's an important distinction. Council, of course, also has a code of conduct which empowers council to impose corrective action, reprimand, and censure. Corrective action is really what we're talking about here in these circumstances. And that can be defined as action taken to eliminate the causes of nonconformities or other undesirable situations so as to prevent recurrence. And I'd emphasize the last part, so as to prevent recurrence. It's in this context that council made its decision to impose corrective action on Councillor Zabian. Council can obviously request a formal legal opinion expanding on this if council feels that it may be helpful, but I note that the decision was made and the period of corrective action may actually be complete before this returns to council, because that corrective action ends in September. So that's, wanted to place that context before council as it contemplates what, if anything, to do with this RFD.
Thank you, Solicitor. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow, and thank you, Solicitor, for that. I just want all of you to understand, my peers around the table here, as well as the public, that I've gone to municipal affairs 4 or 5 times. And there's nothing in the Municipal Government Act that gives authority to do what you all did in here. And we can sit here and say, well, you know, you have a code of conduct that we know has no teeth to it. If I wanted to, I could get my lawyer, which I've asked him, I could do a judicial review, and I probably would win. Because there is nothing in the MGA that permits what you all did that evening to me. Thank you, and that's all I want to say.
Thank you. All right, council. The next item on our agenda is the recommendations arising from the CAC meeting on June 12th, and they will be presented by Councillor Maxwell, and your mic is on.
Okay, thank you. This is a council advisory committee recommendation to council for a withdrawal from sanitary sewer operating reserves. At the June 12th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Matthews presented a request from the Finance Department that $33,057 be withdrawn from the sanitary sewer operating reserve to support a shortfall caused by a charge against the sanitary sewer operating budget. The sanitary sewer operating reserve fund holds $539,797. Council Advisory Committee recommends that council approve a withdrawal of $33,057.56 from the Town of Kentville Sanitary Sewer Operating Reserve to offset the shortfall. I so move.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the allocation of $33,057.56 from the sanitary sewer operating reserve to offset operating shortfalls. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on approval of the motion to approve allocation of $33,057.56 from the sanitary sewer operating reserve to offset the operating shortfall. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Advisory Committee, recommendation to council asset retirement obligations policy. At the June 12th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Matthews explained the background around asset retirement obligations for the town and introduced the draft policy, which will better coordinate this annual task to adhere to new public accounting legislation. The proposed policy is closely aligned with the Public Accounting Handbook. Council Advisory Committee recommends that council approve the asset retirement obligation policy backdated to April 1st, 2022. I so move.
Seconder, please. Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the asset retirement obligation policy backdated to April 1st, 2022. Is there any discussion on this matter? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. I think I just need some clarity. And I asked about this at last CAC. So to me, this seems operational. And perhaps it's not. But so I just need a little bit of clarity around through the chair to the CAO.
Thank you, CEO.
So you're right. You know, this would be one of those things that would be. However, what you're starting to hear is a number of municipal units and or the government ABCs talking about this. And, you know, the amount of effort and energy in folks in order to not end up with a qualified audit. So I wanted council to be aware. And operationally, if we had gone through this process and had larger requirements, so for example, to put away funding for the decommissioning of something, then that actually at the end of the day has an on-book cost. So this very much would normally be an operational piece, but we wanted to make sure as we were going through this process that council, as you heard from other units who might have a bigger impact, were aware of it. And then second, you know, obviously as we go through it, the impact of this for the town is very minimal. But it's one of those things when we started this process, you don't really know where it's going to fully end up. So it would have been a 2-for-1 opportunity to also talk about here's what this means on the books.
Thank you.
Councillor Gerard, you're good?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. CEO, do we know yet whether or not we have to put actual money aside for decommissioning of an asset?
Right. So typically what would happen is this is a book entry that if in the decommissioning of the asset, for example, you were able to sell the asset, then you have a net, so that it might not actually be really cash at the end of the day. However, if you thought about if you had an asset you had to tear down and then build up a new one, tearing that asset down might be a real cash obligation. So as we have worked our way through this, we don't feel that there's any substantive assets that need to have that real cash impact at the end of the day. It's mostly minor items when you think about kind of how we're already depreciating things like our well pumps and those kinds of things. By the time we are removing a pump, there is generally no useful life left on our books. And the decommissioning of or taking a pump out is typically an operating cost instead of a capital cost.
Okay. So let me put another what if to you. What if, think about our public works garage, where we've had trucks sitting and oil and that sort of stuff. So if we decided to build a new public works building somewhere else and tore that down, because nobody wanted to buy it, then we have to have money in the bank already to, so do we start putting money in the bank tomorrow for public works in case we ever decide?
So the assumption being as you're going through this is not that you're gonna take every asset and tear it down.
Okay,
The assumption would be that your public works building would be, if there was a need for a larger public works building, you would probably add onto it instead of decommission it. You do have to look at if you had, for example, a storage tank in the ground or something like that, but these are already regulated and inspected as part of our environmental requirements. And so, the real piece would be more around if you had a piece of machinery or something that was a holding vessel, that when you're done, you really had to take it and demolish it at the end of the day.
okay. One more question? Are we gonna see this on our financial statements? Like, is there gonna be a new page in our financial statements that says, this is what we have in our retirement asset bank?
So the way that this would work is this is really for the conversation with the auditor, and they try and quantify it as part of your collective impact. So as of course, we know in an audit, it's not about, our smaller items. Typically, if there's an adjustment needed, they generally look collectively at what the total size of your books are, and then look at if there's a variance above a certain amount, then you would or would not get, essentially a qualified statement. There will likely over time be a line added to the financial statements. And this is really, at this point in time, getting ourselves up and off the ground to have that conversation with the auditor to make sure that everything is on side.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no further discussion on this, are you ready for the question? The question is on approval of the motion to approve the asset retirement obligation policy backdated to April 1st, 2022. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried.
Thank you. This is the final Council Advisory Committee recommendation to Council. This concerns the Joint Regional Transportation Agency. At the June 12th, 2023 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, CAO Dan Troke introduced the Joint Regional Transportation Agency, which will focus on improving transportation issues around a perimeter of the Halifax region. As the province is expected to double in size, these service hubs need to become more effective and efficient conduits moving people in and out of the city. Council Advisory Committee recommends that Council approve the appointment of the Town of Kentville Chief Administrative Officer, CAO, and as an alternate, the Director of Engineering for the Joint Regional Transportation Agency Working Group. I so move.
Thank you. And seconder? Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the appointment of the Town of Kentville CAO and as alternate the Director of Engineering to the JRTA Working Group. Is there any discussion on this matter? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship, and I understand I'm treading into waters that are, again, operational. I do have, and I know the CAO is busy, and I know that the Director of Engineering is very busy, too. So I just have some concern around sort of what the time commitment is. Maybe it's quarterly, biannually, I don't know. Thank you.
CAO?
Through the chair.
Sure, I think it's gonna be, at this point, it's a little ad hoc as we start, because the main influence here is going to be in areas that, first, there's an RFP that's being put together by the new agency to do some work. So scoping that out and having conversations around that, I expect that'll be a fairly minimal commitment, likely by Zoom. And then once it's up and running, to your point, I think the intention would be that if there are specific technical conversations that need to happen, we would line up the appropriate people in each organization to have that. So I don't think this is going to be a very heavy commitment. in year one, because I also think that once the agency completes its strategic work, that's when we'll have a better idea on what's going to be needed and who's at the table. So this is kind of getting it up and running.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions or discussion on this matter? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Just, when I read this, it says improving transportation issues. Is the quality of the roads gonna be one? Because that, the province in general should spend some money on making the roads drivable before we worry about other issues. Thank you.
CEO, did you have?
I would be happy to pass that along on your behalf.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the appointment of the Town of Kentville CAO and as alternate, the Director of Engineering to the JRTA Working Group. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right, moving on now to our council reports. And our first one is Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last council meeting, May 30th, last CAC, June 12th. May 31st, the special meeting of the CAO evaluation. June 19th, special meeting personnel. June 21st, public meeting, the subdivision bylaw. And June 22nd, the public meeting, about the McDougall Heights rezoning. And that is my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. It was a light meeting for committees. The Partner for Climate Protection happens once a month. They had a guest speaker, and his name is Charles Morgot. He spoke about something really interesting, and it was Community Technology Assessment Platform. And it's an Excel-based software. It's a living tool, and it's actually free to municipalities. And what it does is, the gist of it, it allows you to fill in, it's a living document, and you can fill it in as you work towards all your improvements that you do. So it could be land, it could be buildings, it could, whatever the goal is. And all you have to do is agree to the licensing, and everything is free and then comes towards you. They do right now, they spoke about a pilot project that they have going on in Bridgewater. So I had reached out to the mayor there, and I'm just kind of, I wanted to get his take on it and see what he thought about it. So that was really interesting for sure. And we had a diversity Kings County meeting, and yes, we're discussing the terms of reference continued, but the biggest discussion was on the growth and changes, what we would like to see with the committee. So a lot of people there had talked about, yes, we know we have the meeting once a month and we have it in the one building, but you know, what about, let's say it was shared and something happened in Kentville and something happened in Wolfville. So people become more aware of what this committee does. And then they also rolled out, there was an upcoming Pride Lunch happening on June 15th. Some of the Kentville events, the Visitors Info Center, the celebration for the sit and chat bench. That was a beautiful presentation they did. Lions Breakfast, Rotary Luncheon, and the Women of Excellence Awards was awesome. There was approximately 73 women in business and economic development who were on stage that night. And it was a kudos to whoever was involved in it, because it was absolutely fabulous. And down through a lot of the things that I took in, one of the things I just did want to mention, I know someone's talked about it before in last meeting, but the Neck Grad Walk. I probably cried 4 times just to see them come down with the beautiful dresses, so that was nice. The physician recruitment event, what they did was they called it Docs Without Gravity, and it was in Greenwood. And they showed doctors could get in small planes, and they were bringing them up to show them the beauty of the valley. So I didn't stay long, but I was actually able to meet a couple of the doctors and kind of mentioned, hopefully you'll stay in the valley, and it was a good discussion for sure. And then invited to a group meeting with the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs of Canada, Dominique LeBlanc. There was approximately 14 people around the table, from agricultural to timber to solar. And then once we introduced ourselves, we were allowed to speak about some sort of topic that we wanted in that room. And it was almost like a kitchen party, because it was very relaxed, and he took lots of notes. Right now, I'm taking an Equal Voice online course, and it talks about getting started in politics. But it is for women in politics, women thinking of going into politics, and at what level, federal, provincial, or municipal, or women who are not going into politics but who may want to help with campaigns. So there's been 12 of us in that course, and it's been a great building of networks, for sure. May 25th, I attended the FCM conference in Toronto. My report is attached, and just a couple of things I do want to talk about. One was where there was a lot of important discussions, but one of the rooms they had, and it was hosted by Canadian Mental Health Association of Canada. And initially, when they talked about asset management, your mind normally goes to buildings and plows and, you know, whatever we have, but their whole topic was about the people. So as an example, a big discussion was, whenever something happens, the first thing, especially here, the first thing says, okay, what do you need? We got volunteers, and, you know, when we're in REMO meeting, the first thing, there is lots of people who want to help, right? And they come there, and, you know, there's always a discussion is, okay, do we have in place, what do they need to do, what do they need to know, who do they go to, whatever, but nobody ever talks about what happens if they go to a place where they see something that is out of the norm, and it's disturbing to them, and then where do they go from there? So this conversation was about, how do you help volunteers in the aftermath of, and more that's hitting the tables. And I thought it was kudos to whoever brought it up in the beginning, and it seems to be hitting a lot of the tables moving forward. So I'm really looking forward to the progress in that discussion. While I was away, I was voted as one of the board members. There's 74 members on that board, and I just wanted to give an update. The schedule did come out. It showed all the meetings. My frame is only till June of 2024, and there is one session coming up, just so you know, and I will not be attending. It's only 2 days, and it's way too much money for 2 days. There are also virtual committees. The virtual committees do not cost anything. It's the virtual conferences that cost something. And right now, there are no virtual conferences. So just to give you a little heads up, some of those meetings kind of almost go away. And the other thing is, I did attach some of the pictures of the trade show booths that we were there. One of the booths that we met with was somebody who builds facilities for municipalities. We talked about, of course, they talked, it was, oh, it's only 27 million. I'm like, no building's 27 million, it got to be more. And even though when it all came to the end, it was still 60 million, which it was amazing, some of the facilities that they had built with everything that was included. So that was really interesting. Off that, June 6th, I started my discussions now with Ottawa for the Shadow Minister, which we'll be visiting. She's the Shadow Minister of Seniors, and that was the connect that I met with the FCM meeting that I went to in Ottawa in December. So sessions are being planned in multiple places, so they can spend the day with us. And bookings are in progress, and there'll be conversations with seniors, long-term care home, municipal leaders, et cetera. The other thing is, I've been in conversation with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and John Lohr, and I'm asking for some sort of housing update meeting. I know we had a meeting about a year ago, but I know they've been busy since then, so I'm looking for some sort of comparison. What did we have last time? Where are we now? To give an update. John was really receptive to that, so I'm looking forward to that meeting coming up, and the dates I've asked for will be in September. And that's my report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Huntley. Councillor Zabian, you had something?
Yeah, through the chair, Mayor Snow, thank
Certainly.
you. Just wondering, Councillor Huntley, we're still part of Diversity Kings?
Yes.
I thought they came there, Snow, and asked for money a few months ago, correct, to be part of it? And
Sorry,
I remember reading an article in the Advertiser,
we're part of what?
Diversity Kings.
Yes?
The county had requested money to be part of it. Because I read an article you had quoted and said that,
No, that was part of the intermunicipal service agreement. What the county was looking for, as you know, Valley Waste and Duran.
no, I know that.
No, but
right.
we now have one board, and that
Okay.
is the mayor's. And what happened was Kings County came to the IMSA board, so the Intermunicipal Service Agreement Board, and asked the membership if they wanted to form an intermunicipal service agreement with Kings County for diversity.
Okay,
And all three of the Kings County, so that would be Berwick, Wolfville, and Kentville, said they were not interested because
Okay.
they were all doing their own
yep,
diversity,
Okay.
and felt that the current diversity did not cover off the other entities. Yes.
okay, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell. Oh, let me,
All right. I've attended the last council meeting and as well as the last council advisory committee meeting. My committee meetings were May 25th, Annapolis Valley Trails, which I'll speak about in a few minutes. May 25th also, the bursary committee met, and the bursary recipients have been chosen and will be announced after graduation ceremonies have concluded, so I think we have another week or so of that, for that. May 30th, CAO evaluation meeting. We did what that says, worked on the CAO's evaluation. Heritage Committee meeting, June 5th, very productive meeting where we reviewed the heritage bylaw from West Hants. June the 8th, Annapolis Valley Trails held their AGM, and I'll speak about that in a minute. June 9th, Inclusion and Access Advisory Committee meeting, and I'll speak about that in a second. June 19th, Special Council meeting was on personnel. June 20th, attended the public hearing for the subdivision bylaw, which is a sidewalk change basically. And June 20th as well, Special Council meeting, and that was the second reading of the subdivision bylaw. So on June the 1st, I attended the Kentville Historical Society meeting and speaker. At least 50 people attended that meeting, and they thoroughly enjoyed the informative talk by, I put Louis Camel, but it wasn't Louis Camel. It was Glenn Ells who talked that time, and he was very, very interesting. If you haven't been to any of those Historical Society speaker meetings, I highly recommend that you should go, because it's amazing the history that these people bring, and you know, it's a nice to step back in time and have a look at what was here before us and so on. So I highly recommend that. The Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition meeting on May 25th, we reviewed the budget. The coalition has hired 2 summer students who will work in Kings and Annapolis. Both positions are fully funded. The trail coordinator gave his report. In Kings County, grading is taking place, and people who are out on the trails, biking and so on, may find newly graded areas a little bit soft, but they will firm back up. Weeding is being done, but mowing had not taken place as of May 25th, but I imagine they're at that now. The Harvest Moon Trail website has viewing higher than other trail websites in Nova Scotia, which is interesting to know. And the coalition has received many compliments on the work that we have done at Kentville on the bridges and our section of the Harvest Moon Trail. So just wanted to pass that along. Corey Robar from CCH, Community Culture and Heritage, spoke on the infrastructure funding model. The chair gave her report, and she thanked all the funding partners. She reviewed the past year, including the storms and how they impacted the Harvest Moon Trail. Through Nova Scotia Trails, work is being done on consistent trail etiquette. And so we'll probably see some signage and some public information going out for people who are using the trails. The trail coordinator reviewed the past year. He pointed out that they are looking at what can be done to help protect our trails from wildfires. And as well, we are working on trail closures and how to enforce that. Messages from the province needs, the group pointed out that messages from the province need to be much clearer, and this will be passed on to Nova Scotia Trails to pursue. We are keeping a record of invasive species, which there is quite a lot along the trails, knotweed, poison ivy, and so on, and where you could come in contact with them as you travel the trail. So if you went on the website, clicked on the section of trail you're on, you would be able to find out what invasive species you might encounter on that trail section. Caution is being put out to bikers and drivers that people on bikes are not stopping at intersections. And, you know, that's the riders. And so we need to stop, and let's be a little bit more cautious out there. Vandalism is also up along the trail, which is discouraging, and I believe that we have had some instances of that on our own Harvest Moon Trail section here in Kentville. The RFP, the Inclusion and Access Advisory Meeting on June the 9th. The RFP is closing June 23rd for the accessibility and energy efficiency updates to Town Hall. At the present time, there are not many grants available for accessibility, so I imagine they will come on stream as we progress a little bit further. But at this time, they're a little bit hard to come by. The call has gone out to the public for the street naming committee, so I think we're looking for another person, and we'll go out one more time. The bleachers at the senior ballpark are coming out, and if you've driven by, you've seen the crane there lifting all that cement out. And we are working with the company to make sure that the new bleachers are fully accessible. The dog park had the accessible trail leading to it complete, so that is now accessible. We discussed sidewalks and the immediate attention needed due to being inaccessible. The RFP is going out for the washroom by the trail near the Heritage Center. And I think that's my report. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Council meeting attended and CAC attended as the rest. May 31st was the CEO evaluation meeting. June 14th was Investment Advisory Committee, where our portfolio stands just north of 12.8 million. The year-to-date performance is about 0.676 against the balanced income CAT of 2.5. The markets have been quite volatile, and there was another interest rate hike with more on the horizon, potentially in July, I think it is. In May, there were several risk rating changes to 4 equity positions, Manulife, CAD Tire, et cetera, but this doesn't impact our investment policy statement in any way. We moved just north of 1 million into GICs that have to have a 2 to 5 year ladder. There'll be a recap, presumably from the Director Matthews in her CAC report, but rates varied somewhere in the vicinity of 4.5% to 5.2%. June the 15th was Regional Sewer Committee. We had an operations and compliance report. Project updates were all done in camera. Communications update around education, and there were partner updates, and there was some discussion around testing areas at Valley Regional. June 19th was an in-camera meeting. June the 20th, we had a Town of Kentville public hearing meeting, subdivision bylaw amendment to require sidewalks, multi-use pathways along new collector and arterial roadways, as well as adding multi-use pathways definitions and construction specifications. June the 1st, I attended the Kentville Historical Society along with Councillor Maxwell, and Glenn Ellis spoke about historical landmarks. I too would encourage folks to attend those meetings. They're very good, very informative, and they're fun. June the 2nd was the VIC grand opening, where the Association of Psychologists of Nova Scotia Sit and Chat bench was unveiled. June the 2nd, I attended a seminar, Women in Politics, put on by Sarah Dobson of Cox Palmer. June the 3rd, I attended the Come Together event at the King's Arms Pub. It was very, very well attended. hundreds of people there, and it was nice to see so many people out and encouraging and also advertising that we are a welcoming and inclusive community. June the 9th was the Women in Excellence in collaboration with AVCC. I was nominated as an honorary Woman of Excellence. I was not the recipient, but it was an honor to be nominated. June the 10th was the CK prom, and I put that in because I was not here for the NECEC prom, but I saw the photos and they were outstanding to see, and everybody looked beautiful. June the 13th, I attended a supper at the VCLA, Valley Community Learning Association, and had a sit and chat with Peter Gillis, and these are community suppers. I would encourage anybody to go to them. They're open to the public, and you pay what you are able to, and it's a wonderful way to connect with folks and see what's happening in the community, and they have a lovely garden and gazebo in the back there. June the 14th was the Wren AGM. The Honorable Susan Corkum Greek spoke on economic development. She touched on the fact that the valley is bursting with development. We welcome back to the Wren community the town of Wolfville. There was discussions around the STAR program, tourism. There was the MIT program where I refer Mayor Snow, who she may speak about that in her report. MIT. They talked about land and asset database, workforce development strategy, connector program, regional marketing. So I just said kudos to Jennifer and her team, which continues to expand, and they're doing really, really great works here in the Annapolis Valley. June 15th, I attended the Municipality of the County of Kings Pride launch, where Mike Butler was the keynote speaker. Always a joy to listen to him and his story. June the 17th was open house for Amatora Supply. Alex and Margaret had a nice visit there. I have not been to the sushi place. I missed their opening, but I will visit them. I understand they sell out of their sushi quite a bit, so that's a good thing. June 17th was Oak Dean soccer game where the Rotary took on the Special Olympics team. It was great community spirit, and it was a tie. Just the last part of my report is about the FCM conference, and I have a copy of the agenda there. We didn't land until Thursday when the trade show had already started, and we arrived later in the day to save on flights, which worked out really well. I'll just do a quick recap of the FCM trip. It was about 3,000 elected officials, give or take, and municipal staff in attendance. We had great representation from Kings County, HRM, and surrounding municipalities in Nova Scotia. It's always a great opportunity to speak with other sister communities in other parts of Canada that are similar in size and scope to town of Kentville. Oddly enough, surprisingly enough, we have a lot of the same issues. The trade show portion of the FCM conference is always a treat in as much as we get to visit a variety of booths where information is very germane to the town of Kentville. One in particular that stood out to me was Magna. It was around stormwater and wastewater and innovative infrastructure solutions. And there were some discussions about pilot studies as it related to the sewer system that we have now. Connections were made, and there have I've connected back and forth with them. There were some micro homes that were there that would fit nicely with the recently applied for, I have CMHC affordability grant, right? Okay. I could go on, but I'll leave that for future discussions with CAO and staff. There was a mayor or two that stood out to me. One of them was Mayor Brandon Burley, who spoke of his city's commitment to newcomers. I have in parentheses there the Ukraine war, both political and expertise in immigration. He has talked about the Ukraine school and their program, and they work closely with the province on welcoming these immigrants in, providing them places to live and childcare. So again, that was a really, really great way of the different orders of government working together for the good of the growth of the community. Some of the CEO notes that I took, the CEO of FCM, she talked about immigration and that our economy depends on it. So that was sort of a great segue into the Mayor Brandon Burley, who I just spoke of. She talked about Canada being largely unprepared for growth, healthcare, housing, mental health. And there was a great deal of dialogue around orders of government and how they interact and how that interaction is crucial moving forward. I think in the past we've looked at municipal and federal and provincial, and in some respects have worked in silos. And it's really important that these orders of government work together. There was reference to the global crisis that brought our various levels of government together, and having these orders of government encouraged to secure things like gas tax. We learned quite a bit more around the Green Municipal Fund and how we can incorporate same into our communities. There was discussions around removing single-family housing, R1, from municipal planning strategies. And I think the discussion she was having was essentially what got us here won't get us there. The CEO further noted how it's important to connect in person, because these conversations that take place in person are where the growth really happens. There were various workshops around intellectual property, asset management, overall mental health. Councillor Huntley spoke about that. The deputy leader of the Conservative Party, Melissa Lanceman, spoke. She talked about the cost of housing. There were plenaries around public spaces, the ICIP grants. All leaders of the parties, the federal parties, spoke. Climate plan discussions around what respective municipalities can do, and I have solar in quotation marks. Then around finding a home, Canada's next generation of housing, and the National Co-Investment Fund, and working with marginalized groups. Inclusive communities. So anyway, suffice it to say, it was a fantastic conference. I feel blessed and honored to have gone, and I took some great learnings from it. So I thank the folks around this table, and I thank the citizens of the town for allowing me to attend that conference. That is my report.
Thank you. Councillor York.
Thank you. So I want to start by thanking both Jennifer and Jason, who worked with me all day today, so I was able to attend this meeting. I had a lot of high hopes, but ultimately a lot of canceled flights, but they made sure that I was able to get here, and I appreciate that your Mondays are very busy, and I was being a little bit extra, and so I really do appreciate that. Secondly, you can look at my report and see that I attended everything that my colleagues have attended, so I will skip to the bits that they haven't been to. That would leave the AVRL, so the Annapolis Valley Regional Library, held their AGM. It was the same night as County Pride, so I wasn't able to attend that, but the AVRL was, AGM, for a lot of acronyms, was excellent. There's a lot of information about all of the changes that are coming out of the library, a lot of exciting changes coming out of the library, and their summer programming is available now. So you can take a look at their calendar online and do some really cool planning for students and adults and everything in between. There's a really cool robotics thing happening out of the Kentville Library, so it's definitely worth checking out. Our Board of Police Commission meets later this week, and they often fall just after our council meetings. So if you're looking, so when the Chief of Police gives his update at CAC, that's the most current information. So just because of our scheduling right now, we're a little bit behind our council reports to the meetings themselves. This month has been an exceptional month for community in the town of Kentville, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge all of the wonderful things that we saw coming out of the town of Kentville, from graduation to Pride events, and it's just the very best of the town of Kentville when we have those types of events. So a big shout out to the parents and the town staff who helped organize all the grad events and prom, and to Joey Murphy and Sue Smiley and Nico from Annapolis Royal Pride, who pulled off the Come Together event that was held earlier this month. So just a quick recognition that we see what you're doing, we love, or rather I love what you're doing, and I think the town of Kentville is all the better for all of you. So I am going to leave it at that, because it would be a little bit redundant at this point.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Zabia.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I'm not gonna be redundant either. So I was at most of the events that you guys spoke of. I did miss that, the June 20th meeting of the subdivision bylaw amendment. So that's on there, but it shouldn't be. For committee meetings on June 5th, we met as the Heritage Committee, and we spent this meeting reviewing the document used by the municipality of West Hants, kind of as a starting point for review. We're gonna probably look at another one at the next meeting and try to pick away and try to figure out how we would deem these properties as heritage and what kind of system we can put in place, and then we'll bring that before council when that's, when we're ready for that. Lots of conversations with citizens over the last month, obviously over the McDougall Heights development, and that's pretty much my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. CAO Troke, could you provide council with an update on the operational matters that were discussed 2 weeks ago at the CAC meeting?
Thank you, Mayor Snow, and council, thank you. What I'm actually going to do is follow up on at CAC. Director Bedingfield talked a little bit about, and actually thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the segue on CMHC has come forward with what's called a Housing Accelerator Fund. Now, you're probably hearing a lot about this because this is one of those opportunities where a budget announcement by the federal government, and these are direct agreements between a federal agency and municipalities. So this is not about going through the province or any other agencies. And what makes it a little bit different is they're gonna open the portal for the application for 45 days and it closes and that's it. Everybody's gotta get in. So two things. So the shameless plug is I'll be gonna be coming to council with an application as we have for all of our other grants. And part of this is for us to get in the door with essentially, you have to come forward with 4 or 5 key goals for your community. And under that, you can coach smaller projects, but thinking about housing affordability or accessibility and environmental change. These are all items that are eligible under these programs. So if you've got your own strategies and policies in place, you can then build out the work that you would like to see over a 2 to 3 year period that could be substantially funded by CMHC. So just to give you a sense. So this was announced in the budget for 2022. This is $4 billion funding to 26-27. So it's a 3-year window. And the idea behind this is supporting the development of affordable, inclusive, equitable, and diverse communities. And so under that umbrella, it's not just housing, it's all those other things you need to do to look at affordability and look at development. So for a municipal unit, while zoning and applications and our policies are part of our piece, maybe we're working with the nonprofit community, maybe we're working even with private sector developers on how do the pieces come together to fill in the gaps that you see in your community. At the end of the day, this isn't about us owning and building things, it's about how do we entice others to do the things that we would want to see in a community. So this is intended to drive change. What we know is that even with all the rapid amount of development that's happening, there's still gaps. The gaps are in affordability and gaps in just the sheer numbers that are being constructed. When we talk about immigration to Canada, by default, there is going to be significant immigration to Nova Scotia and to the Annapolis Valley, and making sure that we have adequate, suitable, and affordable housing for folks is paramount as part of how we plan and how we zone. Obviously, we're going to be doing our own secondary plan, and there's a lot of work that will come from that. But once our application, if council agrees to do so, comes in to play, then if approved, you enter into a direct agreement with CMHC. And so that would be a piece we obviously at that point would be bringing back to council because it's a direct contribution agreement between all of the parties. Needless to say, our staff have been filling out a lot of information, collecting a lot of data, because you need to speak very specifically to the experience you see in the town or municipal unit that you're in. Certainly, I have to give a big shout out to our provincial partners who've been able to supply us with different pieces of information, which is incredibly helpful. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when this portal opens, we've got this kind of 45-day window to make sure we have all our ducks lined up. So council, my shameless plug is it's coming your way for you guys to take a look at. And, you know, I'm sure at that point in time, Director Bedingfield and others would be way more eloquent than me on that. But I wanted to make sure, because you're probably hearing about a lot of municipal units are scrambling, and some are fortunate, like I think Kentville is, to be able to pull all the information together to be able to do something like this. Others are really at that point where they're trying to say, all right, step 1 and 2, where I think we're already at step 6, 7, and 8, and kind of where as a community we need to be to get this stuff done. So my shameless plug and information for council, and more to come.
Thank you very much, CAO. Are there any questions for the CAO on that report? All right, thank you. I think I can be a duck on that one. All right, my report, you have it in the package. As most of you know, I attend most of the same meetings as you. However, I am on the NSFM Board of Directors, and I'm also on the Audit and Finance Committee, so there's a few little extras in my report from that perspective. We had some really great events this month, I guess, or last month, however you want to look at it. The opening of the VIC, which included cupcakes and coffee, and I have to say that if you miss the grand opening of the VIC, you miss some really great cupcakes. And as well, we had the psychologists sit and chat bench, and there's a real story behind that because Eileen Donahoe actually brought this to us in August of 2018 from the Association of Psychologists for Nova Scotia, and of course the town of Kentville had to decide on where the bench would go, and then at the time they were changing service providers for their benches, and so anyway, here we are 5 years later, and we have the bench, and it is a beauty. So if you are up by the VIC, the Visitor Information Center, you will see this beautiful, beautiful bench. Another great event that I was privileged to attend was the Royal Canadian Army Cadets Annual Ceremonial Review. So 2444 Kings County Royal Canadian Army Cadets had basically their promotions and graduations and achievements, and what a bunch of incredible young people doing some amazing things. And the funny thing is that, you know, on June the 7th, I saw many of them in uniform, and then at graduation, I saw some of them again walking down and celebrating their graduation. So once they're out of high school, they're probably out of cadets as well. But just really amazing kids that we have here in Kings County participating in the cadet program. On the 9th of June, I got to welcome the Nova Scotia High School girls softball regional teams. And again, it was one of those great opening ceremonies where they're paraded onto the field and they all have their signs and getting ready to go. And it was just a great day. The sun was shining for them, despite the fact that it was supposed to rain, but it held off for that day. The 9th of June, the evening of the 9th of June, was a really amazing event with the Duke of Edinburgh Commonwealth Study Conference. There were 20 young professionals who traveled to Nova Scotia. They had been in Canada for an 11-day whirlwind tour. And they came from, I think it was 20 of whom traveled to Nova Scotia for 11 days, and 13 different countries. And it was absolutely amazing to sit down and chat with these young people and hear what they're doing in their own country. Now, the thing is, as well, I said they're all young professionals, so they all had to leave their workplace to do this. And following the evening in Kentville, the entire group was headed for a plenary session in Montreal, where they were presenting to Princess Anne as part of this. So it was pretty incredible. And the thing with this event is that within the next 5 years, they have to be able to demonstrate how they're going to basically change their community, their province, their state, or their country with their learnings from this. So it's something else. 10th of June, again, I'm giving you the highlights of the really great events that I got to attend. VCLA Literacy Mile. I couldn't even spell correctly. Literacy Mile. Again, great afternoon at VCLA. If you have never been there, take the opportunity to go to their Tuesday dinners. They do lunch every single day. I think it's Monday to Thursday they do lunch. Tuesdays they do supper, they have this literacy mile, and I'm gonna tell you, this is a group who's taken Paradise and actually gotten rid of the pavement and made gardens, and it is so beautiful up there, and they are so proud of what they do. And we got to celebrate the accomplishments of their learners. And, you know, we're talking about adult learners who've come back to get their GEDs so they can get the job that they want or go to school. And the really nice thing is that there are people who've had success in the program who are now giving these small little bursaries so that people can do a little bit more. So it's so inspiring. 10th of June, Nekek Prom Parade. Oh my goodness. Talk about, it was just amazing. All the beautiful people were out, and it was just a really beautiful event. The 12th of June, I attended the 3 convocations at King's Tech, and again, absolutely amazing. I think what we have to consider about our NSCC King's Tech is that they are taking people and they are actually putting them right into the workforce. Almost 85% of the students who graduated on the 12th of June already had jobs. And, you know, and if they didn't have jobs, they had lines on jobs. So it was absolutely amazing. Again, King's Pride event, it was supposed to be a flag raising. However, there were thunder showers and lightning, so we didn't raise the flag, but we did raise a little noise. So it was all good. From a conference attendance perspective, I did attend the FCM conference from the 25th to the 29th of May in Toronto. I attended several webinars from the comfort of my own desk. On the 9th of June, I attended the John Paris Jr. event where Windsor West Hants Recreation Center was renamed John Paris Jr. Rink. What a day. That was another really great day. On the 17th of June, Member of Parliament meeting, our MP Cody Blois invited us to have a sit down and chat with Minister Dominic LeBlanc with regards to funding and innovation in the Annapolis Valley. And those of you who know me know that I never let go of a chance to plug something. And I mentioned to the minister that if we had a high-speed train going from Kentville to Halifax, we could take a crap load of cars off the road. And if you think about it, to the train station in Bedford is less than 80 kilometers, and with a high-speed train could be done in less than 30 minutes. So if you think about an electric train going back and forth on a monorail that's elevated from our current trail, this is something that could really change the outlook of the Annapolis Valley. And then I had some miscellaneous events. Trip report for FCM, it's in the package. The conference content this year was chock-a-block full. Typically, when you go to one of these events, they typically have 3 concurrent events, and with 3 people going, we can basically take advantage of everything. This event, they had 5 events going at any one time, plus study tours. So you really had to pick and choose and determine what was important for the town of Kentville. And again, municipal innovation is high on my list of things that we should be looking at. Modular housing solutions. So these modular housing solutions, basically what they do is they put in a chunk of cement. There's sewer, water, and power going into this, and then they start putting these modules on top and it's not supposed to be a forever. It is supposed to be a stopgap as you have huge changes happening. Pallet shelters were incredible, and if you think about last winter when we had the issue with the polar vortex, these pallet shelters could be very important in how we deal with getting people shelter in really bad situations. Cyber harassment is only getting worse and worse, and women politicians are targeted more often than men, but men are also getting and feeling the hate. Some ideas that I think should really be considered by our staff is, and I'm so sorry for putting this, this acronym down, CPRA, Online Community for Parks and Recreation Sector. We're already hooked into them, and when I introduced myself as the mayor of Kentville, the young woman who was in there said, "Oh, you have Rachel. Rachel is a rock star." So here I am in Toronto, and people are telling me that our staff are rock stars. And the same at numerous other booths that we went to. You know, if you think about our flowers downtown, those water, the new self-watering plant pots all came from FCM, and those people remember us. And the funny thing is the woman from LeClaire Lighting remembered Lindsay, and that she talks with her on an annual basis. So it's you know, it's kind of nice that our staff is also making those clicks with folks. Magna Stormwater and Wastewater Innovation Infrastructure Solutions. This is absolutely incredible, and could actually resolve some of the issues that we are currently having here in the Kings region for our sewer issues. I had the opportunity to speak with the mayor of Brandon, Manitoba, because they had looked at this. However, the province of Manitoba will not permit this type of infrastructure in Manitoba. So I did speak to our Kings Regional manager for our wastewater, and he said that Nova Scotia does permit this, so it has some pretty interesting applications. City Portal with Airbnb and how we manage Airbnbs in our region is one of those things that we really need to be looking at, particularly as we start looking at how we manage tourism in the region and how we pay for it. Because if you think about it, every night stay, you know, needs to be putting some money in the pot so that we can pay for these types of services. When the presentations are available, I will have them installed electronically on our SharePoint. Again, I recommend that the town of Kentville, as per policy, continue to attend the FCM. Cross-section attendance is really important. And I think the most important part of it is that you see these really great ideas, and there's folks who are selling them. And the first thing you wonder is, are you selling me just a line, or is this something that's actually going to work? And the nice thing is that you get to talk to a municipal councillor or mayor from another place who has either thought about implementing it, or didn't implement it because of a reason. So you come back with that real knowledge, and you also end up with contacts that when you're looking at this stuff, you can pick up the phone and call and say, "Help! I need help on this." And as well, we chatted with numerous people with regards to grants, and as the CAO just presented, I will also say that our staff are truly rock stars when it comes to grant writing and what we get out of that. The next FCM will be held in Calgary on June the 6th to the 9th of 2024. And that is my report. Councillor Xavier.
Thank you, Mayor Snow, and thank all of you for your reports on FCM. It's nice to see what's coming out of it. What I found interesting, and I don't know if it was in Councillor Huntley's report or yours, that only 52 elected officials from Nova Scotia attend, and there's only 49 municipalities in Nova Scotia, so a lot of them must not send people. And while I agree there's benefit, to send 3 people at this trip, I think was around $3,400 a person. That's $10,000 that we just spent. You know, you're not gonna get every part of it in, so I've said this before, I think one representative is more than enough. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have completed our recommendations and our reports, and now we're moving on to our new business. Our first matter of new business is a request for decision with regards to recording in-camera meetings. We We have the request and an opinion from the counselor and CAO. I would hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. So the counselor made a request that meetings would be recorded. These would be in-camera meetings. Just to set the backdrop a little bit for council, and I know council would know most of this information, that the MGA in both Robert's Rules speaks to in-camera meetings and best practices. So MGA Section 22, Section 22.2 talks about your reasons for going in camera, and we talk about this all the time, is that acquisition, sales, setting a minimum price for tax sales, personnel matters, labor relations, litigation or potential litigation, etc. Section 22.3 talks about that no decision should be made in a private council meeting except a decision concerning procedural matters. So if direction can be given to staff, direction can be given to the solicitor in camera, but for anything else, you have to come out of in camera and have a motion. So which is what we consistently do. That in camera is about the discussion for folks to be able to kind of get their head around an issue, but then the wording of that motion is very specific. So council would then choose the words that they want to move forward on a particular item. They may very well be very general in those words if the item is confidential, or they might choose to be very specific depending upon what the direction is. So the MGA speaks a little bit about the requirements to keep limited records. So there's no required for verbatim recording, and the solicitor or the town clerk can keep notes in some circumstances. Generally accepted, and just talking to a number of municipal units, typically what most municipal units try to do is capture a summary of discussions, not verbatim transcripts. Some do record their meetings and then use those to create their verbatim transcripts afterwards. But minutes typically identify things such as a vote was taken, was consensus reached or not reached, and basically gives a glimpse of the discussion that was had. Robert's Rules speaks not about in camera, but speaks about their executive sessions, which is the equivalent to an in-camera meeting within the MGA. So the one thing that's important to mention is that Robert's Rules says that every single thing that happens in camera is confidential. And always, and this means everything that happens in the room and every part of the discussion that happens in the room. And minutes in Robert's Rules talks about are not verbatim, and you do not include things specifically like an opinion, a criticism. You try to hit the highlights. And again, motions are required once you come out in an executive session, and those motions are typically what is the direction to the organization. Now again, Robert's Rules very specifically designed more for a board and an agency, but where we have adopted those for our rules, I just wanted to make sure, and I know the council has heard these in different avenues, that both the MGA and Robert's Rules does touch on the subject.
Thank you, CAO. What is the wish of council? Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I'm the one who brought this forward. Just from my experience in the last couple of years, when we leave those meetings sometimes, I'm not comfortable that what we have come up with comes back to us the way that we've left it. And I don't know, when there's no recording, things can be misinterpreted or misunderstood. And I have taken the opportunity to speak to a lot of municipalities, and a lot of them record them now. They're still confidential. They're still in camera, as the same as the notes are. So I'm not really sure what the problem would be with doing that. I find those meetings can be very uncomfortable, and I would just feel better. I would feel much better myself. I don't know about the rest of you if they were recorded. I think that would probably help the way those meetings flow as well. A little more respectful manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I have really no issue with videotaping or videoing in camera. I assume that we can store those where they will be confidential. I think the biggest thing is, for me, would be a deterrent, something in place, a deterrent for inappropriate behavior, maybe as a backup to our code of conduct. I think that people are a little bit more cautious and a little bit more friendly when they're being viewed, whether that's by a camera or whether that's by outside observers. But for me, you know, I don't see any reason why not. I think it can still be kept in confidence, but that deterrent factor is something that I would consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor York.
Thank you. I guess I'm wondering, and perhaps through the chair, to the CAO, how, if a recording or like audio or visual or a combination therein were to happen, how would that get stored in a confidential way on the town servers? Because we certainly, there are often times where we're discussing either like contracts and those sorts of things that perhaps need a different level of security and privacy once they're stored. So I'm rather indifferent to whether we record it or not. I am not indifferent to how we store them. So I just want to make sure, because right now everything kind of just gets into a cloud. But I would want that to be a little bit more secure and a little bit more thought out if we're going to be recording something and then and keeping it, you know, forever in, you know, perpetuity. Where does that go, and how does that get stored such that there's guaranteed privacy for that item?
CEO?
Thank you. So first, what we have is recording and video right now is designed for broadcasting. So it's not specifically designed to record a meeting and then kind of hold that in a vault somewhere. So there is some things technological. This is not a big thing, but there are things that would need to be done on that side. And again, Jason is our IT guru. He would be the one to have to set that up and put that in place. Then second, I would suspect that coming out of a meeting, similar to any confidential documents, there would have to be a place on our drive where that information would be stored and access would be limited to one or two individuals who would have the ability to go in. So our IT manager and then likely the CAO and the clerk. So no one else would have the ability to get into that drive to access that information. But again, I'm talking at 20,000 feet, the detail on how that would happen. I'd have to sit down and have that chat with our IT folks.
Thank you. That's certainly information that I would like to have, because it is, like, I understand that any notes that are taken presently don't get stored anywhere specifically. It would be the motions that would come out that would be stored. So I would like a little bit more information around that, just because I think that's an important piece if we're going to be adding a video file and an audio file that get appropriately channeled and securely.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. So I just want to make a couple of points. In-camera sessions, they certainly have a legitimate purpose, and I've been involved certainly with a lot of boards where we go into in-camera. One of the things that sort of has been over and over that we talk about is certainly recording shouldn't be the main tool used to take the minutes and would only be used for backup if really required. As to the CAO's point, we go into these sessions for a very distinct purpose, and the matters that we discuss in these sessions are very, very private and confidential: personnel, legal, labor, land. We have a deputy clerk who takes the minutes of the meeting. We come out of camera, we make a motion, whether it's to direct staff or what have you. I just think it's one more avenue whereby sometimes, to Councillor York's point, if we don't know exactly how these things are going to be kept confidential. I'm comfortable with how it's being done now, so I won't be supporting the motion if there is a motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I struggle with this because we sat here for about a year and a half, and Mayor Snow took the notes in those meetings, which is not part of Robert's rules. We didn't have a deputy clerk here taking meetings in the first year and a half, and I don't know about the term before. So I don't think it was intentional, we just probably, nobody knew the rules, and I just think this avoids any confusion, any problem. And to the points by both councilors, or the deputy mayor and the councilor, about the security of it, I think if it was a big issue, other units wouldn't be doing it. I don't think it would be hard to reach out and ask them where they store them. We're not the only person or the only unit that would look into doing this. I have no fear in being recorded in an in-camera session, and I definitely echo what Councilor Maxwell said. I think the decorum would improve 100%, because when you're recorded, you're gonna behave. Thank you.
Thank you. So are you looking for a motion that
Yes,
council
please.
approve the recording of in-camera meetings?
Yes,
And you're moving it?
I am.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Maxwell, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the recording of in-camera meetings. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I feel uncomfortable voting on something if we don't have, I guess, if we could, with an understanding, not record anything until we figure out how we were going to store those things. And forgive me, I can't see council at the moment, so, and perhaps through the chair to the CAO, is it possible to get, a timeline on perhaps how quickly we could figure out how to store this stuff, just so that we can confidently go into in-camera knowing that this stuff would be securely recorded or stored, rather?
I would say the most reasonable piece on that would be, we could, for the next council meeting, not the special meeting, obviously we were talking about earlier, but for the next council meeting, if council chose to pass this, then that information at least could come back, just with regards to how that would be stored.
Thank you.
Your worship, in thinking about this would be a change to your meeting policy. And changing your policy requires advance notice of a change to the policy. Don't know that this has satisfied that. It may have, but if this was sent to staff or to CAC, someone to report, to bring it back to either CAC or council, then that would give an opportunity to address Councillor York's question as well, and as ensure that from a process perspective, you're on side with amending your meeting policy.
Okay, thank you. So council, we have one member of council requesting more information. Our solicitor has specified that this would mean a change of policy. Do we wish to lay this on the table and take it back up once we have answers to those questions, or do we wish to proceed with voting on approval of this request? Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. So out of in-camera comes a decision, direction towards, to staff, or just a discussion about an issue. All of those things, either a discussion about something, is usually us getting information. A vote is a vote, and it's definitive, and direction to staff is definitive. I won't be supporting videotaping in camera because, the minutes that get captured are the spirit of the discussion, not what individual people said. And, it's not a verbatim, this is what happened. I won't be supporting this.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the recording of in-camera meetings. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is defeated. All right, our next piece of business is with regards to a property tax reduction. CAO, if you could take us through that, please.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. So we have a request from the owners of 24 Sherry Avenue, which was destroyed by fire earlier this year. The property owners are requesting now a credit to the taxes paid. Now, the policy actually for the town speaks to the ability of council to be able to apply a reduction in the assessed value. So just for council's benefit, property valuation provides an assessed value, and based on that assessment roll, once tax rates are set, the town sends out the tax bill. And should a building have a fire, or for some reason that building be destroyed, property valuation process to catch up to the new value of that property may take some time. And so council has the ability through policy statement G37F to actually do a reduction in the assessment. Now, part of that process, we obviously would also be going to property valuation and informing them that we are doing that. And it is very typical in many towns that upon a fire that an owner would make a request to have the assessed value reduced. And if a policy such as this exists, then councils can vote on if they choose to do so. It is not typically the practice where refunds of taxes already paid would occur, that your reduction would be on the next tax bill that would come out based upon whether property valuation caught up with the valuation or not. This new valuation by council would be the one used for the tax bill.
Thank you, CAO. And the recommendation is that council approve the request for a property tax reduction for 24 Sherry Avenue pursuant to policy statement G37F tax reduction. If someone could move that, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Zabian, thank you. Can I get the moved and seconded in there? It has been moved and seconded that council requests for property tax reduction for 24 Sherry Avenue pursuant to policy statement G37F tax reduction. Solicitor? From
a process perspective, directing the question through your worship to the CAO, it's always more comfortable if the amount of the reduction forms part of the resolution. But I don't recall, does the policy have a formula in it, or is it simply reliant on what PVSC has to say? That was my recollection, was it is reliant on what PVSC has to say.
So process would be that the building inspector would confirm that the site had been destroyed, and that typically there is a formula that's used just around land value is what the site is generally carried at after that. So that's fairly prescriptive from property valuation, but again, they may take a while to catch up to that. So the policy talks about the steps that need to happen in order for the new value to be applied.
So it's up to council, but the issue becomes, once council passes the resolution, what is the assessed value if it's not part of the resolution? And it's, the new assessed value is to be effective upon passing the resolution. PVSC then takes that number and changes the assessment, which will change the tax bill going forward. And just as an aside, PVSC can they can change numbers during a year, which can be very frustrating, but they can change numbers to catch up with various types of things. But this is the trigger for this particular type of situation. So it's just, you end up with an unknown, and it's a number that you are pursuant to this approach determining, but yet you don't have the number. So therein lies the challenge and the caution is all.
Okay, thank you very much, Solicitor. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. This isn't the first time that we've done this. Just wondering what process we followed last time. Like, how did we reduce? And, you know, I think we should apply the same policy.
And that's what we do. It's as the CAO mentioned in his note to us, is that our policy, the building is basically condemned, and then we let PVSC know that this has occurred, and they send a number back to Nancy downstairs, and we move forward.
And that's what we did last time?
We've done this 3 times
Three
now.
times?
Yeah, so this is our 4th time.
Okay.
Didn't that number come back to council?
No, it did not.
Never came back to
No,
council?
no.
On 1 McDougall Heights?
Yeah. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. This Councillor Maxwell, essentially, yeah, and I don't ever recall the number coming back to council. It just, yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the request for a property tax reduction for 24 Sherry Avenue pursuant to policy statement G37F tax reduction. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you very much. And CAO, we have a letter from Municipal Affairs with regards to housing.
Correct, Mayor Snow. So this came from the Honorable John Lohr. Basically, where the province has gone and done their own analysis around land availability, as the pressures and demands around the housing crisis exist, they're reaching out asking for any municipal units who can add to essentially the inventory of land that might be out there for development. So I encourage councillors to take a look at the letter, and if there is any parcels of land that are available for development, certainly we as staff are taking a look at what we have. The larger pieces are a little bit easier. Sometimes it's the smaller pieces you have to take a look at. So as part of our work over the next little while, we will be taking a look at that inventory.
Excellent, thank you very much. Are there any questions with regards to that letter? All right, that concludes our open session business for the evening. We now invite the public to make comment to council on any matter currently before this council. Items not on the agenda will not be entertained at this meeting. Please state your name and address, and your comments are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Dennis Keogh, 29 Riche Boulevard. I come here tonight to make a bit of a request. I'm not sure if all of council is aware of policy around freedom of information, but I made a freedom of information request and it was denied by staff. And I just think that perhaps you people are not even aware this is going on. So I'll give you the nature of the request and then I'll ask something else of you, but the formal process is if your request is denied, you go to the province. It takes about 2 years, so that means it show up just before the election, 2024. In any case, my freedom of information request, and I'll read it, that's the quickest fashion to communicate it to you. A transcript of the mayor's comments at the February 28 council meeting was included in the March 27th meeting package. In her February 28 comments, the mayor indicated a full investigation of the allegations were conducted. This is in relation to the letter from former CEO. So I asked for a copy of that report. Obviously, a former council was accused of some transgressions. Whether they would be legitimate or not, that's not the point. The mayor indicated there was an investigation of those, of those complaints, and presumably that is the Jennifer Weston report. Now, what I added in my request is because the mayor used the Jennifer Weston report in her comments to suggest the unsubstantiated allegations by a fired CEO were investigated, the report no longer qualifies as attorney-client privilege. I'm not a lawyer, but that's certainly my opinion. You can't have somebody investigate allegations against you and then say the report cleared you of those allegations, but then say I can't show it to you. So in any case, what I'm asking council is to specifically put an agenda item to have a discussion about this particular report. I'd like that to be provided. You can redact the names. It doesn't have to name this councillor done this to so-and-so staff member, or so-and-so staff member done something to council. The names are redacted, but the complaint was investigated, and the result of that complaint is in that report, presumably. So that's what I'm asking. I'm asking for council to put an agenda item. The meeting doesn't have to be public, or it doesn't have to be in public. It can be in camera, but I'd like an investigation of that complaint. Now, I would add that any member of the former council who was in that CEO's letter as having been complained about, they would not be allowed to be involved in this discussion. They would have to recluse themselves from this discussion because they would be in conflict of interest. So my formal request to council is to have an agenda item to review the staff's refusal to provide this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and fellow Kentville people. I had been scheduled to and was prepared to make a presentation to Town Council on June 12th on the subject of 15-minute smart cities. On June 8th, I received an email from Deputy Clerk Jennifer West informing me that my presentation was to be postponed until an unspecified date in the fall, as the council was busy with other matters and did not have time to hear my 10-minute presentation. I questioned the fact that 10 minutes could not be found sometime over the next 4 to 5 months to listen to my presentation. In response, I received an email from Jennifer West informing me that my presentation was to be canceled because, and I quote, "Council has the ability to restrict presentations as per Council Meeting Policy G70, Sections 4.28(3) to 5. Restrictions can be made because of content not being in the purview of municipal government," unquote. I would contend that anything to do with municipal planning, town development, is absolutely within the purview of municipal government. Furthermore, as I watched the June 12th council meeting online, I clearly heard one of the town councilors make a comment about smart cities, specifically that perhaps they should be nipped in the bud. I would like to suggest that my topic was entirely within the purview of the municipal government, and I would like to request to be put on the schedule to present on 15-minute smart cities as soon as possible. 2 neighboring counties and towns have already been approved for grants to implement smart city technologies according to the Canada Infrastructure website. People are rightly concerned about anything that is shrouded in secrecy. We need full disclosure and open discussion on this topic. I look forward to hearing from you at your earliest possible convenience with a date for my presentation. And I have included this in the form of a letter to all of you, so I have a copy for everyone. But I wanted to do it in the comment section to ensure that this request would become a matter of public record. So can I just leave those on the table there?
Please do. Pat, could you also state your name and address, just for the record?
Sure.
Thank you.
Pat Norton, 53 Palmer Avenue, Kentville, Nova Scotia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Good evening. Mike Carter, 48 Acadia Drive. I'd like to speak briefly about the rezoning application, if that's acceptable.
So solicitor is standing up.
Yeah. Sorry, excuse me.
I haven't started the clock anyway.
Yeah, the council's not able to hear additional information on this. The public hearings occurred. You're now essentially cloaked in a cone of silence that you're going to get additional information, and you have to be very careful not to get new information or entertain any new information. All representations by the public had to occur before the end of the public hearing, and you shouldn't entertain any new information.
I understand that.
Mike?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to you, Mayor Snow, and the councilors for I think the thoughtfulness that I've seen from each of you as you've approached this issue. It's complex, and I see that you're approaching it with that in mind. Thank you. I want to say, in particular, thank you to the comments by Councillor Gerard this evening. I left the public hearing with the same thought, that we as a community, as a town, we seem to be approaching, in the early days of this development discussion, we're approaching it without a clear vision. And I thought that comment was very sincere for me. I believe that we have an opportunity as a community to make sure that we have a vision before we start to undertake a development of that magnitude, because I believe it could suffer if we don't. You can imagine that, and I'll be cautious in my remarks here. You can imagine that I have mixed feelings about the decision this evening to further delay your second reading. On one hand, I'm very grateful that if you need clarification, that you've found a mechanism to seek that clarification. I'm grateful for that. On the other hand, you can imagine I'm concerned that your vote could be influenced through that process. And as the solicitor has pointed out to you, it would not be okay for new information to come to you at this point in time. And so I have to trust as a resident that staff will not present new information to you, and if it does come, that you would reject that in your consideration. I would trust that you would do that. My worry is that it seems apparent that planning staff seem to believe that you should approve the rezoning application, even though most of the residents in the area feel otherwise. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? Are there any further comments? All right, thank you very much. The council has items which must be conducted in a closed session, and we require a motion to go into the closed session to discuss the agenda items. We will not be returning to live for completion of the meeting or adjournment. So a motion to move into a closed session to discuss the agenda items. Councillor Huntley, thank you. Deputy Mayor for the second, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council move into the closed session. The question is on adoption of the motion to move into a closed session. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. And the time is 8:17. Let's